Sometimes you just want a short read. Tann's Last Stand is a perfect little fantasy tale that might be just what you're looking for. Today, the reasons why. Welcome to Fantasy for the Ages, the show where father and son talk about fantasy, science fiction, horror, and other nerdy things that we enjoy. Today, just Jim, the father of this show. I'm here with you today to share a book review, Spoiler-Lite, of something I've read recently. And I think you're going to like it. If I'm right, be sure to give us a like and subscribe to our channel if you haven't done so yet. And thank you to our Patreon supporters who help us keep this coming out with their monthly support. We love ya. Okay, so Tann's Last Stand is what I'm here to talk about today. A fantasy novel, epic fantasy by R.E. Sanders. This was published in October of 2022. The genre, it is epic fantasy, but this book itself is not very epic. It's the start of something that's going to get bigger and bigger. So it's the epic fantasy feel, but it's just a fantasy novel. I've already read and enjoyed two other novels by Sanders set in the same world as Tann's Last Stand, A Path of Blades and Demon's Tear. A Path of Blades reads like a standalone fantasy novel and was published in August of 2023. Demon's Tear is the first book of the Jantakai Saga, an epic fantasy tale of an unknown number of books at this point. Both of these other novels were very well written, enjoyable fantasy, and I've previously done book review episodes on those two books, so you can go and check them out. But if you were paying attention, you'll note that Tann's Last Stand came out before either of them. This is where Sanders first introduces us to his fantasy world and the style of writing he's bringing to bear. I just had missed it. While A Path of Blades hasn't yet had a direct connection to the Jantakai Saga, though it might, I may just have missed it, Tann's Last Stand has definitely already been worked in. So I definitely had a gap in my knowledge when I read Demon's Tear with these references to characters and places that we meet in Tann's Last Stand. Sanders sent a copy to me after I'd reviewed both the other books. Very nice of him, a proper British gentleman to help me out like that. So I was able to fill in the gaps. And really, it doesn't feel like a debut novel. Tann's Last Stand is polished, it's elegant in its writing, it's got a nice, tight story. In my humble opinion, it's a great book. The setting is the land of the Great River, one corner of the sprawling fantasy world Sanders goes on to expand through his next two books, and that we'll continue to get more and more about. The feel is typical Western European medieval fantasy, something that honestly is just very comfortable to a bunch of old school fantasy people like me and many of you out there who are watching this now. So if that's your jam, you like that sort of thing, you're going to find this book very appealing. Here's my Spoiler-Lite summary. The land is a pretty lawless place. Good people band together to support each other in small communities where collectively they can scratch out a living. No one is wealthy, but in general, everyone has enough. And they have a life that's just not that bad. Except when bandits decide to intervene, because this is like the wild, wild, wild west, and there are ruffians out there wandering the ways, taking advantage of people, and sometimes they decide to go for an easy score and give a town a hard time. This story is about one such innocent village that falls prey to a particularly nasty group of bandits who are going to use the power of threats and indeed violence to take over and to live off the hard-working people and what they've stored up in advance of a coming winter. Hardship will be on their way. This is not going to be survivable for the village. So a few of them do try to stand up to the criminals and take some pretty serious lumps. This leaves two of them to decide to flee the village, but not to escape. Rather, to get out there and find help. Someone out there has to be able to come and save the village. stand up for right. They'll promise them anything to try to pay them, though right now they have nothing because the bandits took it all. But hopefully they can convince some people to come. And yes, the story then is about the gathering of some unique individuals who do come to the village, help them rise up. And of course, then the ultimate showdown between the village with these outsiders against the bandits. And it leaves no one unscathed. The plot, fairly straightforward, with just a few surprises, nothing too shocking. There are some connections between some of the characters, some history they have that comes out over time, and which demonstrates Sanders did put some time into fleshing out some backstories, which enriches the drama that then unfolds. But for the most part, you get what you see, and it's perfectly satisfying. As for characters, some of the characters are pretty flat and straightforward here. Honestly, in the village, both the majority of the villagers and most of the bandits are just background and rather one note. But two of the villagers, Fionn and Holt, rise above expectations and demonstrate grit and courage beyond the norm, and we get to see some nice growth in them. The leader of the bandits turns out to have some background, some uniqueness, but still he's rather caricature as the bad guy villain leading some bandits. The real stars when it comes to characters are the various folk that Fionn and Holt are able to gather to help the village, of which Tann is the linchpin. But this collection of people, it really gave off vibes like that classic Western, The Magnificent Seven. And I mean that in all the best of ways, a distinct compliment. Sanders' writing style comes off as elegant and polished, quite pleasant to read. His narrative is fairly linear. There's references to past backstories, but no time is given to getting lost in flashbacks. He's got a story to tell, one with plenty of tension and lots of action, and we get to go along for the ride. I found the experience to be plot driven, not getting caught up in too many details or excessive exposition. We stick to a swift march forward of events, full of action and danger, all culminating in a heck of a climax. It was nicely done. There's not a lot of super deep themes in this story. I'd say the primary focus is on what it takes to overcome and survive challenges and the resilience of a community coming together. We are stronger together. You might see, if you're looking for it, a bit of standing up to a bully, the importance of that, but it's quite taken to extremes. For warnings, well, there's violence and death in this story. Happens in a lot of fantasy tales. Grief and loss are definitely part of the story early on. The violence that happens, well, it's violent, but we move on. We don't really focus on it. There's no grim, dark elements here. Nothing gratuitous. It happens as part of telling the tale, and let's keep going. My rating for this story is a 4 out of 5 star. So it's a good book. It's not a great book, whoa, but it's a good book. It lacks complexity, so 4 is the highest I can go with it. But what it does give you is entertaining and satisfying. And as an introduction to a new fantasy setting, it's a pleasurable beginning. I certainly recommend this story to anyone who enjoys traditional epic fantasy. Okay, if you have not read the book, this is where you need to stop and go get the book and check it out and enjoy it for yourself. Thanks for being with me. I'm going to go into just a little more full spoil commentary for a section. So, haven't read it, bye-bye.
The Spoiler Room.
As for full spoil, I don't have much more to add here. I want to highlight that this village that we see here is visited and passed through by our main characters in Demon's Tier as we start off the Janakai saga. And we see characters who are far more capable because of what happens here in Tann's Last Stand. I mean, this is a village you do not want to mess around with when we meet them in Demon's Tier. Also, the character of Tann is also in Demon's Tier, somewhere different. He's not in this village now. He's gone on to set up his own place, and he's built a reputation, a very fine reputation out there here in the wild lands still. There's clearly some things about his past when you're reading it in Demon's Tear where, I think I'm missing something. So I wish I had read this book first, so I would have understood and appreciated it. But I get it now. If you've already read this novel, but you haven't read the rest, you definitely want to continue. What R.E. Sanders is building here, I think is just going to keep getting better and better as we see this very richly developing fantasy world with a great story to tell. We've got action, we've got violence, we do eventually get magic, some pretty cool things happening. And it's fun. All right, that's where I'll leave you today. If you have comments, if you've read this book, or just for whatever reason want to comment on what I've commented in, that's why there's a comment box. Use it. I'll read what you have to say and I'll respond. And if you want to interact with me or my son Zach further, check the show notes for all our social media links, an invitation to our Discord server, even our email address. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you next time.